because of the volume of calls, it would be wrong to leave this topic at the moment. We're talking about some of the comments Brendan Rodgers has made with Wesley Fofana leaving Leicester, heading down here to London to Chelsea, and darn little business on the other side with players coming in to Leicester, and that's caused a bit of unrest in general terms amongst the support, not least what Brendan has said following the transfer window closing. We needed help, and unfortunately we've not been able to get that. Many of you getting in touch with us on that. 03717 223344 810 89. Mark is a big Celtic fan, and of course Brendan Rodgers came to Leicester City after a very successful spell at Celtic. Mark, good morning. What do you want to say about this?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we?
We're very good. Thanks to you for calling. Go on, the stage is yours, Mark.
Basically, there is no Celtic fan up here remotely surprised that this is going this way. Straight out the Brendan Rodgers playbook. He spat the dummy with us when he couldn't get his own way. He tried to side John McGinn. Granted, the board should have went that extra, I believe it was 500 grand to get the boy. But when you look at the failures he had previously in the transfer market, I've just got a few names here. For example, Bayu, Kouassi, Gamboa, Comper, Jack Henry, a combined total of about 14 million, which is not small beer up in these parts. I know it's not a lot down in the Premiership, but up here that's a lot of money. And between them, they played about a combined total of 20 games. He's useless in the transfer market. For every Edward and Dumbelli that he unearthed, who were great signings, there was about 5 absolute donkeys, quite frankly. And Liverpool fans would tell you the same. And the guy on earlier saying how the poor signings at Leicester. But Brendan, he's got such an ego. Brendan's biggest fan is himself. There's no question about that. His ego will be dented. He spits the dummy when he doesn't get what he wants. And I'm absolutely no surprise at all. And it's only going to end one way, and that's he gets a big fat payoff and rides off into the sunset. Because the man's got no class.
Mark, I mean, I'll jump in because that is pretty strong, is it not? We shouldn't forget that Brendan was a serial winner at Celtic.
Yes, but what was you up against, Jim? Let's be frank. Rangers were in absolute turmoil. Despite us winning all those games, every time we come up against a decent opposition in Europe, we get absolutely spanked. Some really embarrassing defeats at the hands of PSG and Barcelona, etc. So, yes, we could say we won a lot of trophies up here, but I think we've got the real deal now in Ange Postecoglou, because Rangers have got their act together. They're a beaten finalist in a European competition, made the Champions League, so they're a good side, and we're still riding high on top of the league. So, Brendan wouldn't be able to cope with this Rangers team. Put it that way.
Mark, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for the call. Paul's a big Leicester fan. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
All right?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Martin's here, so too is Simon. So what's your take on all the ongoing situation on the pitch, but as well as that off it at Leicester?
I think the problem started probably 2 seasons ago. He's delving into the transfer market. His policies, the player that he buys, is just they're inept for our club. He spent 67 million last summer on bench warmers. One guy's Bertrand injured completely all the time. Vestergaard can't head a ball and he's 6'7", and he doesn't utilise the players he has got that are begging to play, but he doesn't seem to use them. If he doesn't fancy them, he's very quick to judge everybody else. He needs judging.
I mean, you won the FA Cup final last year, Mike. To be honest, Paul.
He did win the FA Cup final, but if you look at our path to the final and the margins and the look that was involved, don't get me wrong, that was the biggest thing I ever wanted our club to win. Not bothered about winning the league.
Yeah.
Always the FA Cup. We won that, and then all of a sudden, it was a downward curve.
Well, what do you make of what your owner, saying in the programme last night? The club is as safe in our hands as it's been every day for the last 12 years. Do you believe that?
I do believe that. And they've done fantastic things for the city, let alone the club. I mean, they've just given £5 million to a new neonatal unit in Leicester. They've got money, but the fact is we spent £120 million on a training facility. We've taken £80 million out for the new extension on the ground. And if Mr. Rodgers gets his way, that extension won't go through. We will not fill that ground. The football is back, forward, back. We've got no end product. He's played Vardy on his own up front for the last 6 months. So at the end of last season, the beginning of this season, he's so frustrated because he's got no one up there with him. And at 35 years old, he's not going to be running like he was when he was 29. He's not got that engine anymore.
Now, Paul, I'll get Simon and Martin to round this off after we've heard finally from Michael, who's a big Leicester fan. Michael, good morning.
Morning, chaps.
Yeah, good, thank you. So, where's your club going?
Well, hopefully we can survive this year. I mean, for me, Brendan's a bit of a fraud. He came down with this elite manager tag. There's not a single player that he's made better in the 3.5 years that he's been here. If anything, they've got worse. We had Soyuncu that was, at one point, a £50 million centre-half, and now we can't get anywhere near the side. The signings he's made have just been appalling. Vestergaard don't even make the starting 11. Samari didn't make the starting 11 all last year. And then he comes out moaning about that he's got no money for transfers. He's been back. He's been back in the entire 3.5 years that he's been here. He's just wasted it. And I echo a lot of the sentiments that Matt made earlier. And the Celtic fan that's just been on, he's just not the manager that he seems to think he is.
Well, he's maybe not the manager that you think he is. I don't think he's a fraud for one moment. Martin, finish this for us.
Well, I feel that the Celtic fan is bitter because of the timing of when he left that football club, but you can't question the improvements he made to Celtic. Yeah, okay, Rangers were in a period of their history when they had dipped and gone down the divisions, Jim, making their way back, but nonetheless, they still dominated there. Europe was a mystery, why they didn't do well. We've heard Paul, Brendan bashing, really. Vestergaard sits on the bench, and it's a mystery to me. I would assume that there's a strategy behind those transfers, and that's not really just down to the manager. We've lauded Leicester in the past about Kante and various players that they bought very well.
Yep.
Suma is another mystery why he didn't play last year, but players take time to bed in. I just think he's desperate now for results. So I'm just looking at the fixture list, and you look at Aston Villa's plight. Well, the very next game after this one for both teams is Aston Villa versus Leicester. And maybe that's going to come down for both those managers to who wins that one. Because it is now about winning games. The pressure is really on Brendan right now.
Yeah, Simon, finish it for me. I mean, Brendan, as you heard there, came in from some stick.
There's not a lot of love there, was there?
Not really. From Leicester fans and a Celtic fan where he was formerly. I mean,
but that's symptomatic of the plight they find themselves in the bottom of the league, aren't they? You're going to not have people jumping up and down extolling your virtues. Brendan Rodgers is a decent manager. I don't want to fall into the narrative because I like the fella of not being able to be objective. He's a decent manager. Do I think he's an elite manager? No, I don't. But I do think he's a decent manager. I think this is a moment in time. I think he needs to get his mind focused and reharness his energies and spend more time working with what he's got rather than bemoaning what he hasn't got. It hasn't been easy because a lot of the time when Leicester are successful, all the managers have had to suffer the indignation of their best players being sold. They've been very good and very adept at being able to replace it. It isn't necessarily helpful that he hasn't got replacements, but there is a good enough squad there to do better than they're currently doing. He isn't a fraud. There is arguments that make up the sentiment behind the fact that Rangers weren't the Rangers that they are now.
Right.
So his dominance and his successes were against a backdrop of not that much of a challenge. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And he did that when he was at Celtic, and he did get the results that Celtic wanted.
And he's won an FA Cup at Leicester.
And that was the point I was going to get to next. And he's gone to Leicester and won an FA Cup. So you don't go from being somebody that people think is a pretty good manager to being a fraud. That's not a spectrum you go from. You don't go from being a decent manager to a fraud.
Absolutely
he's not
not
on that spectrum.
Well,
I do feel, though, we could trace it back to the Nottingham Forest FA Cup.
I
they
agree.
went out.
I agree.
And he said there that it's a rebuild. And I wonder then at that point, were a lot of people looking for that exit door? Did he create that perhaps for himself?
So where do Leicester go from here? I'll tell you where they go. South Coast, Brighton on Sunday.